Saunassa vihaviilenee. Saunassa samusappi.
This traditional Finnish couplet means, anger cools in the sauna, resentment fades away.
Hi, this is Julie, and welcome back to the Sauna Trail podcast. Join us in our adventures as we share the story of how our family discovered the world of Finnish sauna. You might be wondering, why would anyone do a podcast dedicated to something as commonplace as sauna? It's like doing a podcast about grapes or rulers or manhole covers. Well, if you stick around, you might find out that there's more to sauna than you realized. This episode marks our first wood-burning sauna experience on the Sauna Trail, where we realized that we do like Finnish sauna and rediscovered that we like each other too. Then at the end of the episode, we'll share some tips on how you can find your own Finnish sauna experience in North America. Last week, we shared how we stumbled into Finnish sauna in Madison, Wisconsin, by clumsily using a small electric sauna and then falling down the rabbit hole of research, learning that real Finnish sauna is much different than American sauna. If you haven't listened to it yet, I would recommend you do it. It's kind of like our origin story. In today's episode, it's just Christopher and me. No kids today. So how are you doing today?
Doing pretty good. It's December here in Minnesota and fairly balmy, fairly warm. You know, above 30 degrees on a December day is pretty nice. Feeling pretty busy with all this podcast stuff. I think everyone's ripping their hair out here.
Yeah, there's some frustrations around here trying to get all this put together. But it's good. It's good. I've enjoyed it most of the time. So in our last episode, I briefly mentioned that our marriage was in a bad place. And so Christopher and I decided to go on a much needed weekend getaway and stay somewhere with a wood burning sauna. He did all the research, so I'll let him tell you about finding a vacation rental that had a sauna. So how did you find this place that we went to in northern Wisconsin?
Well, I was looking for a place that had an affordable rental. Originally, I'm a schemer. Julie knows that, so I'm always trying to figure out
Always scheming.
some way to get an advantage with something. And so we were doing a photography business at that time. That was our company, and we did 360-degree photography. And I thought, what if I could find a vacation rental that would be willing to swap some photography for lodging? And I actually found one not too far away from us. It was a few hours away in southwest Wisconsin in the Driftless area. It's a beautiful area in southwest Wisconsin. It's called the Driftless area because the glaciers didn't drift through that area and they didn't flatten everything. And so you have a lot of small hills and valleys. It's super beautiful. So it was close by and it was pretty affordable. So I reached out to them via email and they said that they didn't need any photography at the time. So I started looking further out and for rentals that were a little bit nicer and bigger. And I found one in northern Wisconsin where the rental looked really nice, bigger than what we really needed, but they also had a pretty large, kind of modern looking sauna. And so I went ahead and booked that one for us. And it was on the south shores of Superior, Lake Superior. Most Minnesotans go to the North Shore, which is Duluth on up, but this was on the South Shore in Wisconsin. But in that process of starting to look for rentals, I developed some tips and tricks that I can share with our listeners later on how to find a good sauna rental. So I'll talk more about that at the end of the episode.
Yeah, and I did not do any of the research. it was all Christopher. And then he basically would like come up with a few places and then be like, well, what do you think about this place? Or what do you think about this place? And then I would give him input. That's kind of how we rolled with all of this research.
Yeah, I'm the planner of the two of us, and then Julie's my adventure buddy.
Yeah, I get overwhelmed by all the choices, and so it's nice. We make a good team in that way, I think. So Christopher also, in addition to this getaway to this place with the sauna, he also planned a night in the Twin Cities. So we drove up to the Twin Cities, did a few things, and then we drove the rest of the way to northern Wisconsin. So we did a few fun things in the Twin Cities before we even got up there.
Yeah, there was a movie that was playing. I don't remember how I found out about it, but it was called The Salt of the Earth, and it's a documentary about photographer, and I'm going to butcher the name. He's a Portuguese photographer. I think he's Portuguese, Sebastião Salgado. And that ended up being a pretty good movie. I enjoyed that.
I don't really remember it. I feel kind of bad. I remember liking it. I just don't remember anything about it.
Yeah, we should watch it again one of these days.
We should.
And then we had dinner at a place I'd been to before, a Caribbean restaurant in Minneapolis called Marla's Caribbean Cuisine. And we met some friends there for dinner. And the reason I really like that place is they have probably the spiciest dish that I've ever had at a restaurant.
It was like my whole face was just melting. Like was on fire. I don't even know. I think I ate like a few bites. That's all I could handle.
Yeah, that's about what I eat. When I've ordered that dish before, I eat a couple bites.
Because is it their spiciest one?
Yeah, they have several levels, and it's like the insane level. And I have a pretty high heat tolerance for food, so.
Yeah, mine's kind of middle of the road. So then we spent the night in the cities, did those fun things, and then the next day we drove up the rest of the way to the rental. And like Christopher said, it was in northern Wisconsin. So do you want to describe the rental a little bit? Like kind of what it was like?
Yeah, I think it was was it on the Cranberry River?
Yeah, that sounds right.
So it was outside of Herbster, Wisconsin. More in the country. It wasn't in town, more in the country, with the woods behind the house. So it had the rental where you stayed, and then behind the house was a separate sauna building. And then the hill went downhill through the woods to the river, which was a little bit of a ways down the hill.
Yeah, it was a pretty nice big property because we kind of walked around it when we got there and kind of explored it a little bit too. So
yeah. And I was pretty impressed by the sauna. We'll get to that in a little bit. But they also had 2 sauna books on their shelves. One of them is called The Art of Sauna Building. It was a white book by Pertti Jolisja. That's like the American pronunciation. And then the sauna book by Tom Johnson and Tim Miller, and that's a green book that we're showing you on the screen. I'll put those in the show notes in case you're listening to the audio version. This is my first exposure to sauna books, and it probably would have been better if I would have never been exposed to sauna books because it triggered my research and collection tendencies. So over the past few years, I've been slowly growing a sizable sauna library.
yeah, so for those of you who are listening, it's a picture of a bookshelf. It's 3 shelves and it's just full of sauna books. It's a whole bookshelf of sauna books.
Yeah, so maybe I'll do an episode about that sometime. But, and just so we warn you guys again, these sauna books, they will have, nudity in them. Historically, the Finnish perspective on nakedness is different than the American perspective, and sauna was their bath. So
Yeah. So it's like somebody taking pictures of you taking a shower. Well, if you're taking a shower, you're going to be naked. You're not going to have like a swimming suit on. So that's kind of that mindset there with those books and the videos and the things that we have listed as resources. When we got to the rental, we checked out the sauna. I think that was probably the first thing we did. Is probably went to go look at the sauna to see what it was like. So, like Christopher said, it was a large building, separated from the house. There was a creek or a river, but it wasn't close enough to the sauna for us to actually like use it as a cold plunge or anything. So, but it was still sizable, and it was up on stilts. It had a deck, and it had a changing room, which I thought was really big compared to like the building itself. And then you had the hot room with the wood burning stove. And I know what I liked about it was like, I don't think I could see the road from the sauna. Like it was tucked back far enough on the property that, I didn't feel like people were going to drive by and see me and sauning.
Yeah, and we'll show you some pictures inside the sauna later. The hot room had a wood burning stove in it, so after we unloaded everything, I think we probably anxiously, at least I anxiously got going on trying to start a fire in that thing and get it hot.
Yeah. So this is about when I realized how much of a city girl I am. I had no idea how to start the fire. So I just watched Christopher do it. And I just remember like we would light it. We would light like whatever newspaper, paper, and it would light. And I'd be like, oh, look, it's going. And then obviously the paper would burn out and nothing caught. So then we had to like start all over again.
Yeah, and like every male, I probably pretended I knew what I was doing, but even though we had a wood stove growing up, I didn't really tend to it too much, so I didn't know what I was doing either. I think I had trouble keeping the fire going.
Yeah, so I think we lit it. I think we finally got it going, and then I think we went inside and we ate dinner.
Yep, we had those leftovers from Marla's. And you can see, for those of you watching, you see a picture of the leftovers there, along with a soda that we had found called Wisco Pop, which is a ginger lemonade from Wisconsin that's super good.
Yeah, so you can see one of those darker dishes, I think was like chicken or something, and it was like the spiciest level. I don't even know. Like I said, I probably just had a few bites of it with a bunch of rice and green beans. So
It was so spicy, we didn't even finish the leftovers, I don't think.
no, not even close. Not even close. So I think we ate, probably let our food settle a little bit, and then went back out to the sauna and used the sauna. At this point we knew enough to like put water on the rocks, but I don't really remember feeling the steam or like really remembering what it was like after we threw water on the rocks.
Yeah, and I think I had read somewhere, maybe on the internet somewhere, that like your first round, or maybe in one of the sauna books, that your first round was supposed to be pretty much without steam until the very end.
Hmm.
And since I didn't know what I was doing, and we didn't have anyone to guide us through the process, I kind of rigidly followed those things. So I'm guessing we didn't really even put much steam on the rocks.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe. I don't really remember. And yeah, I think I remember you wanting it to get hotter, but we just couldn't figure out how to do it.
Yeah. We eventually got it up to maybe 170.
Yeah.
And I don't even know how long we even let it heat. We were pretty much just driven by this thermometer. And the more you listen to this podcast, you'll learn that that's not necessarily the best way to heat your sauna, is to only by looking at the thermometer.
Yeah. So that was our first evening there. And the next day, we didn't sauna right away. I think we ended up going and driving around and exploring the area because even though I grew up in Minnesota, my family never really traveled up north. And so I think this might have been the first time that I was on Superior.
Yeah, so we drove up to the shore because we were a little bit from the shore since we were south and in the woods. And so we'll look through some of our pictures. For those of you who are watching the YouTube, we'll go through the pictures. And if you're listening to the audio podcast, we'll try and describe some of these pictures that we go through. And we'll put links in our show notes so that on our website you can go back and look through them if you want. So like this first pictures are on the south shore of Superior. We were there for sunset one day.
It was really beautiful. Like I said, I grew up in Minnesota, but we didn't really do a lot of lake stuff. And so just to see a lake that was so big, I think was pretty cool for me.
And for our vacations, we had normally gone west to California, where I grew up.
Warmer places.
Yeah, or down to Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
So mostly we'd go west and south toward the ocean. We hadn't spent much time up north.
No, it was cold up north. Why would I want to go where it's cold when I'm already cold?
And this is a picture of an antique store called the Blueberry Store.
So again, we went in 2015, so not sure if this store still exists. It's very possible that it is, but...
No, I think it was torn down in 2019.
Oh, it was? Oh,
yeah.
Okay. It doesn't exist anymore.
But inside of there, they had a sauna stove. So we were clearly in the right part of the country.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was apparently made by someone named Gary.
Yeah.
Then we drove further along the shore to a town called Cornucopia, and they had a little dock area. What this picture is here. And then the building in the back is a place called Halverson Fisheries.
So last episode, Becca teased you guys and said, we're going to reveal where we got our favorite smoked fish from. So this is the place. It's called Halverson's. They are still in existence. And, over the course of these last few years, we've eaten a lot of smoked fish. And I think this is still our favorite. I had never really had smoked fish before. And so it was smoky. It wasn't too greasy. It didn't feel really heavy. It wasn't like overly dry, or it just had a really nice texture and just really good. I just didn't know what to expect. It was very tasty.
Yeah. Did we get a few different kinds there?
I think so. I think our favorite was the smoked trout.
Yeah.
I think we got whitefish also.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's some of their fish there.
And it just looks good. Like it just looks smoky and salty and tasty.
So if you've never had any good smoked fish from the Superior area, I recommend tracking some down. Now this picture here is further inland, just driving around on small roads. We kind of like to do that, just exploring. And this is a cutover area where I don't know if they had a forest fire, but then they had done a lot of logging. You can see that there's not many trees, and then the ones in the background are really small. And we'd stopped at a place called Superior Sauna and Steam in Superior, Wisconsin. Here's their store. And they had tons of sauna accessories. Again, we didn't even know that the sauna stuff existed, and now we've already been to 2 stores that have sauna stoves. And
yeah, it was pretty impressive. And then sauna rocks that you could buy, because you need rocks on your sauna to pour water on, which was completely foreign to me before a few months ago.
And then this picture is Julie back at the rental, just soaking in some sunshine.
So we came back to the rental after our day of exploring. I think Christopher and I realized that we like exploring together. I think we drove around a lot, like when we were dating and we were first married. And so it was nice to kind of do that again. But then we came back to this house and we sauned again. And I think Christopher said he might have been able to get it hotter this time. Not sure though.
Yeah, maybe one's pushing 170. I still didn't know how to manage a stove.
So it was nice. Like I don't know if you thought of this or if you read it somewhere, but we ended up putting like the smoked fish on crackers. We had some onions and some pickles. So we put thinly sliced onions and some pickles on it. And we had that, with the ginger lemonade with that Whisko Pop. So yeah, I don't know. Like, did you read that somewhere or did you just think of it?
I think I just thought of it
Yeah.
like that it would be good pairing
Yeah.
after tasting the rich smoky fish that pickles and onions would cut it pretty well.
Yeah. And so we had that like in between our rounds. And then we
We
also
played some cribbage.
lots of cribbage.
Yeah, so our sauna was, this is much fuller and richer than our previous one in that just small electric one where we didn't know what we were doing. So this was maybe like a few hours where we, cycled, did several rounds, like had a snack and hung out, played cribbage. So
Yep. Yep. Um, you know, in Madison, when we did that electric, we just sat there until we were done. But here it was in and out a couple different times. And I think we were both just struck with how relaxing the whole process was of the heating and the cooling. And this was in late April, I
mhm.
think.
Yep.
So it was still like cooler. So it wasn't like 30 degrees, but it was cooler so that when we came out of the sauna, it was still refreshing.
Yeah, but not super cold.
No, because I think we were sitting in towels or robes,
Yeah.
And actually, speaking of that, we actually were in towels because we were actually sauning naked. We did not wear suits. Um,
Because we had read in my research, I had learned you are supposed to put water on the rocks and you are supposed to sauna naked. That's the Finnish way. And so, I wanted to experience sauna the Finnish way.
yeah, and I was like, okay, but I wasn't completely comfortable with it, which is very strange because we're married. We've been married now for like I don't know 10 years, and so you would think that I would be more comfortable with that. But like even now, like I'm not like gonna walk around naked. Like that's just not my thing. But in the sauna, when it was just the two of us, I still didn't really feel super comfortable. And I think, we were getting naked physically, but also in our marriage, I think it was a metaphor for getting naked within our marriage. Because our marriage was, like I said, in a bad place. I had mentioned this in our last episode too, that like Christopher and I tend to check out when we get mad. Like we're not like yell at each other and get it all out. We kind of bottle it in and ignore each other. And so I'm pretty good at compartmentalizing my life and ignoring things and then letting things just kind of fester. And then when Christopher does that thing that annoys me, like it just, again, and we had let kind of that just kind of build up, having 4 kids and the craziness of life, and I just didn't feel like we were really connecting. And I think that Christopher has crazy ideas sometimes. Like he gets these ideas and he runs with them, and most of the time I love them, but then there are times where like it's too much, or it's not an idea that I absolutely agree with, but because I'm kind of like a people pleaser, I just kind of went along with it. And I think that there were feelings of like resentment and bitterness, like, oh, he made our family do this, even though I said that I liked it and whatever. And so that's kind of where I was in our marriage at that time. Where were you at, hon?
Well, we've noticed in our friends' marriages, I think early in our marriage, we would see people fight and we think like, oh, that's not a good prognosis for sticking together long term. But it ended up being that maybe sometimes those couples stayed together because they were able to work things through, and the ones who are more polite, kind of like how we are,
Yeah.
and will, just like, I don't want to bring it up, I don't want to put the other person through this difficulty, I don't want to express that I dislike something because that's kind of mean, or I'd rather just be patient.
Yeah, I'll just work on fixing myself and what I need to do.
Yeah. So, and that's not, for all of you who've been married for a while, that's maybe actually one of the worst things that you can do. And it's something we still struggle with,
Mm-hmm.
but especially at that point in our marriage, it was pretty bad. A lot of hurt and frustration were really kind of shoved down to the point where it was so it was so painful for me just being in the situation and feeling like I'm exposing my family to my bad side, that I was contemplating, you know, kind of leaving. Not like planning it specifically, but just kind of thinking about what that would be like. And I had even thought of a place. I was like, I could just go somewhere cheap. And real estate at that time was really cheap in Las Vegas.
So he did look into it a little bit.
Well, yeah, a little bit. And then I was like, I'll just go to Las Vegas. I'll get out of their hair, stop causing them all the trouble that I caused them. And I was thinking through it, and I was like, once I get to Vegas, I'll have to call them to let them know I'm okay. And I thought of that first phone conversation with the kids, and it crushed me to think of that. And then that was the end of that thought after that.
Yeah. And he did tell me this story at that time, so it wasn't like he's telling me the story for the first time. And I think it was just, it didn't break me because I just completely understood where he was coming from. I think we both felt like maybe we would be better not together. But we never said the D word. We never talked about divorce. We just kind of went to our own places in our mind.
But I think we weren't far from that.
No. I think if we hadn't started making changes, that would have been the path that we were heading down.
Yeah.
So.
And this was this was good for our relationship. You were wise in suggesting, because you'd been asking like, hey, should we like get away? And for me, it's like, well, we just need to work through, our stuff. How is getting away going to help with that? But like, you understood the element of, just enjoying each other's company is a super important piece of the equation. And that's what ended up happening is, we enjoy adventuring, exploring, and just realizing I do, remembering why I like Julie. So it was super helpful for that. And then also sauna is like this hack to relax you and make you feel better. And then when you're with that other person, that's
you feel better together.
Yeah.
It wasn't a magic cure. Like, this wasn't like we went on this trip and we came back and our life was amazing and our marriage was amazing. That's not how it happened. But I think it was the beginning of, just like the beginning of our Finnish sauna journey, I think it was the beginning of our marriage healing and getting out of that dark place.
Yeah, it definitely was helpful. And Julie ended up writing an article or a story about it, saying like how sauna saved our marriage. It didn't really save our marriage. And like I alluded to earlier, we still struggle a lot. We're not like the idyllic couple to follow our example.
No.
But it did help. And, I always tell people it's not like some sort of magical relationship saver,
Mm-hmm.
but it can be a helpful piece of the puzzle.
Yeah. It definitely allows a place to talk where anger is not at the top of your emotions and you're relaxed. Yeah. Yeah, that's all.
Well, we'd promised to show you some photos of the sauna. So we'll go ahead and do that now. Again, for those listening in the audio podcast, check the show notes. These are kind of unique and special photos of the sauna. At the time that we went up, we were running a photography business, and we did 360-degree or photosphere photography. It's similar to what shows up on Google Street View when you look around the street. So we had all the equipment for that, and we figured, we should take 360-degree photos of this sauna. And actually, we ended up doing that with most of the rest of the saunas we used. So that's one thing in the episodes and in the very show note links, we'll show you what those saunas were. So I'm going to pull up the 360-degree images of these, and we can look at them and talk through them together. So this first photo is from outside the sauna, and you can see it's up on those stilts like Julie mentioned. It's built on the hillside.
And there's the deck you can see where we played a lot of cribbage. And then as he turns 360, you can see it continues down the hill and down towards the bottom, I think, is that river or creek that Christopher was talking about.
So it's set in the woods, which is a really important piece of sauna, is that connection to nature. All right, this next one is up on the deck.
So there's the deck, and you can see, the wood, and I think there's a broom there and an ash bucket, and then the wood pile.
Here's the rental.
A nice little path to the house.
And Julie had mentioned the changing room. It was pretty good size.
You can see there it had a separate heater. So like in the winter, I'm guessing you could turn that on and the changing room would also be warm, which is, I thought, kind of cool.
Yeah, so this is where we hung out and had our snacks.
And there's the door, and then we'll go into the hot room. There's the stove. I really don't remember much about the stove other than trying to light it was so frustrating. And if you look straight down, you can't really see it in the photo, but there is a drain there down in front of the stove.
Although I don't think we used much water in the sauna.
No, we didn't. So you can see there's only one bench level, and it's pretty low. So when we talked earlier about throwing water on the rocks, like I think part of why I can't remember the steam is because we weren't sitting up in the steam. And so I don't even know if I noticed at that time that it was only one level.
Yeah, I don't think we really knew a lot. We're just learning, and so it didn't register for me either. It looks like there was benches on both sides.
And then you can see the thermostat was pretty high up. So if it was like maybe 170 up there, probably down where we were sitting, probably 10 degrees cooler.
Yeah, or 20.
Yeah.
20 degrees cooler. But you could see out into the woods.
Yeah. And then they had a ladle, and I don't know if we brought our own bucket, or I don't remember because I don't see a bucket there, but
yeah, we probably just used what they had.
Yeah.
I don't think we were traveling with sauna equipment at that time.
No, we weren't. I think we maybe brought, I don't know if we even brought towels or anything. I don't even know. So that's the sauna there. Again, you can see those photos, those 360-degree images. We'll have the links, and then on our website.
Yep, on our website and in the show notes. And so you can go look around yourself. So each of the saunas we visit, then you can go and see what it was like and get build ideas. And if you have any questions about it, leave it in the comments. This is 8 years ago, so we'll do our best to answer as best we can.
Yeah.
So we want to tell you thank you for joining us again. In the next episode, I'm going to share my attempts at pressuring my brother and father into trying this new discovery of Finnish sauna. And you can find more resources on how to locate your own sauna rental or a public sauna in our locals community, which is in the show notes. I've created a post that describes some specialized geeky Google searches and Airbnb hacks to find rentals with saunas. And I'm also sharing with you things to look for in public saunas to find a good one so that you don't experience my frustration at going to use one and finding it's not very good.
Yeah, like it's carpeted or it's got newspapers on the bench, so you know it doesn't get very hot if people are reading newspapers in it.
Yeah. It's free to sign up at our locals, so anyone can go there and join and get these resources. And you'll get regular updates from us at our locals. And if you would like to support our podcast, they have the option to do that as well. Obviously, there's no requirement to, but it helps us offset the cost of podcasting equipment and smoked fish. The address of our locals is thesaunatrail.locals.com. And we appreciate all of our followers and supporters and look forward to you joining us on our sauna adventures. Thank you. Our podcast can be found on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, and other streaming platforms, as well as our website, thesaunatrail.com. New episodes release every Saturday, which is the traditional Finnish day for sauna, also called saunapaiva. I apologize for my pronunciation. We hope to see you on the sauna trail.